we're gonna do a video that I've been wanting to do like forever, like basically since I started this channel, but I really needed to kind of like do my research and like get on my little, you know, talking points in a row. But we're gonna break down the psychology of Kris Jenner and not just talk about Kris Jenner, how her particular brand of crazy affected her daughters. And they each are affected in such a different but distinct way. It's fascinating. And I'm going to be using actual reports from a psychological evaluation she had done years ago. It's going to be great. But first, just want to remind you guys, if you have a question about love, life, your own toxic family, anything you want to talk privately with me about one-on-one, find me on my new website, shallonlester.com, and click Get Help to get connected to me right away. Also, I give you a chance to vote on the topic like you voted on this one on my Instagram page at ShallonXO, so follow me there. And be sure to listen to my new podcast, Girl on Top, out every Wednesday, every place podcasts are found. I feel like I'm so itchy right now. I'm so sorry. Ha! Okay, so let me see. In 2014, Life and Style magazine, who my company owned, I used to work for Star Magazine, so it was our sister publication, they came out with this report that I have been thinking about basically every single day since. Ellen Kardashian, Rob Kardashian's second wife and his widow, sold his diaries to Life and Style, which, wow, bitch, okay. Dude, if you die, like, don't sell your diary. That's crazy. But she did. And in these diaries, Robert Kardashian had a copy of a psychological evaluation he had Kris Jenner undergo during their divorce in, like, what was it, the 80s, the early 90s, whenever it was. And it is fascinating. I think it's the greatest piece of journalism. Like, they should have won a Pulitzer for this because it's just so interesting. Like, I love a good psychological evaluation because it's like, we think people, it's like, they're crazy, they're a bitch. No, there's something specific and there's real medical terms given to people. And like, I love a good crazy person. They're fascinating. So I'm going to read to you from this report. And then we're going to talk about how each one of like Kris's traits affected each one of her children. And like I said, in very distinct and separate ways. So as I'm like going through this, I want you to try to guess which daughter is affected by which behavior. And then I'll break it down. Okay? Okay. So here's some of the things. She's described as demanding, manipulative, and having a Cinderella attitude where situations resulted in everyone living happily ever after. Image above everything. And she is described, she's branded a narcissist with a marked elevation of the narcissistic scale. Now, I've been very open that I am also on the narcissism scale. My therapist said that I'm a narcissist with a lowercase n. It's like, why just lower? Why am I not the best? I'm also like a bit of a covert narcissist, and I've done a video on covert narcissists. Taylor Swift is one. A lot of people who are like in the helping profession, therapists, priests, counselors, teachers are covert narcissists. They get off on people needing them and being helpful in that way. Super charitable people like Meghan Markle, right? She is a classic textbook narcissist, but you don't hone in on it as much because she is so giving. Like, she really is so generous. She's so concerned with others, but that is like feeding her ego. But you know what? Like, who cares? She's doing good things for other people. Who cares what her motives are? The ends justify the means. So great. But as we know, Kris Jenner is not that kind of narcissist. She is just the most blatant kind without that covert aspect where maybe there would be a chance that she's doing something good for other people to appease her own ego. But she's not. At all. Ever. So these are also like notes from his diary entries from like 1989 and 1990 describing his cheating wife as an absentee and abusive mother towards the end of their marriage. And like court evaluations support a lot of these claims. So he shared with a psychiatrist his notes on Kris's behavior. And one thing he shared, the story was when she screamed at and hit Kourtney and Kim. In 1990, he wrote, Kourtney started crying. She was sad because mommy wasn't home at all. So Kourtney was probably like 9 years old, around there, like 9 or 10. Was she born like 80? 10, so around there, you know? She was sad because mommy wasn't home and Kourtney wanted her to cook dinner for them. How sad that a child has to beg her mother to cook her dinner and be home with her. So according to the report, which also described to Robert, like Robert Kardashian, as impulsive when overwhelmed, not Rob the son, Robert the husband, Kris believes she was a loving mother to her children. But the report notes that her sense of self is based much more on fantasy than realistic considerations. And Robert claimed that Kris was reckless and non-motherly. So, and that everything with Kris was about money. Another thing it said is Kris appears, this is from the psychologist report, Kris is found to have histrionic and narcissistic traits. Histrionic personality disorder is something that's been classified. It's no longer considered a personality disorder, which is so stupid. Like, it was for like 30 years, and then they're like, no, it isn't anymore. If you say that a cat is no longer called a cat and it doesn't have a name anymore, that doesn't mean that that animal ceases to exist. It just means you aren't naming it, right? Histrionic personality disorder is when people use their health or like physical things to manipulate people and get attention. We all know someone like this. And this, like, my grandmother had histrionic personality disorder. And so it was always like, oh, I'm so sick. No one comes to see me. She was like 65 years old, by the way, and in perfect health. Like, you know, this was a pathology throughout her entire life. She viewed herself as very sickly and weak. She'd never even broken a bone. Never. I broke 5. Like, and I'll probably break 10 more. So people like that, you know them when you see them, and you maybe didn't have a name for it. And that's like, it kind of like gaslights you. You're like, well, what? Okay, she's always talking about her health and my nerves, like from Pride and Prejudice, the mother, my poor nerves, and always just this like, the histrionic. Histrionics are like over the top drama, theatrics, blah. You're sucking all the air out of the room because you need so much attention. And if you have to pretend that you're sick or your nerves or you're this or you're that to get it, yeah. Because what does Kris Jenner do on the Kardashians? When she needs attention, when she does a prank or something, it's, I've broken my neck, you know, no one comes to see me, I'm just so sick. She's got it. She's got it. And when she has drama, it's over the top drama. Another thing they say, okay, histrionic and narcissistic traits, both are prone to impulsivity and have a strong need for attention. Ooh, Robert, her husband, has a more intense need for closeness and the approval of others. Kris appears to have less need for the approval from others, but a greater need that her sense of specialness be mirrored. What does that mean? It means you need to be on a pedestal and you don't care if it's because people love you or hate you, right? Attention is attention is attention. Any press is good press. And has not that been the hallmark of the Kardashian family? They'll monetize a scandal. They'll monetize a sex tape. They'll look for the good in anything because to the person running the show, to Kris Jenner, well, what do you mean bad? It's not bad attention. It's attention is attention, and you can find something good to get out of it, whether it's money, whether it's an exalting of your own reputation. And so, yeah, she doesn't need people to like her. She doesn't need people to approve, but she does need to be famous. And that's an interesting construct. Fame at any price, fame at any cost. Listen, I'm not saying I'm famous, but I do something that's public and people feel entitled to offer their opinions about me in public. Someone in my last video, they're like, I don't like whatever you've done to your face. You look weird. It's like, who the fuck asked you? Who even are you? Why don't you submit a picture yourself? And 160,000 of us can judge you because you apparently just like got this whole thing figured out. You just know beauty. Leave me alone. But like, and I clearly like thought about it. It bothered me. It got under my skin. It was hurtful, and it was meant to be hurtful, you know? So to not care that people say mean things about you is, on one hand, like kind of admirable and evolved, you know? But on the other, it can be extremely self-destructive because that means there's nothing that's keeping you in check from becoming like out of control. And that's exactly what's happened. Their empire is out of control. Their monetization of everything, whether it's a pregnancy test or a divorce or this or that, is out of control. And Kris Jenner is the one driving it. Some other things. So she produced a Spike 4 MMPI profile. It's not good. This profile is associated with women who are immature, impulsive, high risk takers, who do things others do not approve of just for the personal enjoyment of doing so. Now, someone who is impulsive, narcissistic, and a high risk taker, that is typically how you define a psychopath. And when this study was done, and I actually just read an article about this in Psychology Today, that like, it's harder to diagnose a female psychopath. Some doctors say there's just less of them, that the men have a higher propensity towards being a psychopath. And some say that women simply hide it better, you know, like we're smarter, we're better at everything, including being psychopaths. I don't think Kris is a psychopath, but like she is a risk taker, right? She doesn't have a need for approval. She has that glib, superficial charm when she does her interviews. I just need my girls to know that I love them. It's like, are you dead behind the eyes? Like there's a detachment there that strikes people as very unsettling. It's unsettling. Maybe she's a psychopath. I think there's a degree of sociopathy there, certainly. And Robert Kardashian also said that like Kris never wanted to have kids. And Kris denies like all this. Like at the time, she's like, this is baloney, blah, blah, blah. It's like, girl, we have literal receipts. Like these are reports from a doctor. This isn't like tea from a hairdresser. That like, this is a doctor's objective evaluation of a person who like wasn't even it. It's not like you were a nobody back then. What possible motive would a doctor have to lie? What possible motive would your husband have to lie in his diary? There's something so like soft and sad about a man who keeps a diary, you know, like Michael Scott on The Office. So let's talk about how this affected her daughters, right? Have you been like kind of playing along in your mind and guessing which traits affected which daughter? Well, I have my ideas and I want to hear yours too. So let's start with Kim. When I read, she's a risk taker. She does things others do not approve of just for the personal enjoyment of doing so. That sounds an awful lot like Kim Kardashian to me, right? The sexy photos. I mean, the sex tape in general. The fact that she would sell that willingly with no thought to like dignity, anything like that. It's like, no, I'm just going to put it out there. Whatever. Like all of her like booty shots, like she's an instigator. She's provocative and she likes it. She doesn't necessarily need that approval. And I've talked before about how Kim, you know, has narcissistic traits. I have a whole playlist on the Kardashians and gossip on them. Check it out. But I think Kim does have a higher degree of empathy than her mother does, certainly. But I think that has been suppressed by Kris Jenner's like pathological need for the fame, for the money, like for that specialness to be mirrored back. And she gets it mirrored back through her children's success, right? Right? She's the matriarch. She's the mama. She's the OG. And as famous as her kids get, that just increases her profile, right? Another thing that was interesting, immature. Kris Jenner's immature and impulsive. She dates a guy who's what, 40 years younger than her or something? I talk all the time. When people date someone who are massively younger, it's because they are mentally stuck at that age. And that's about the age that Kris was, I think, when her and Robert separated. Like mid-30s, mid to late 30s, right? That might have been the biggest trauma of her life, and that might be where she's stuck. I date a younger guy, and chronically younger guys, because I'm kind of stuck around age 22. That's when my father passed away very suddenly. So it tracks, you know? And look, history is not destiny, right? Legacy is not destiny. You can control these things, and you can change them, and you can make different choices, or not. I mean, if these relationships don't ruin your life, like, whatever. Younger guys are hotter. Don't try to talk me out of it. So, Kim, doing things just to get a reaction, right? Let's talk about Khloe and Kylie. So when you have a mom like Kris Jenner, hold on, I need some water. When you have a mom like Kris Jenner, you have a narcissist, right? And I have had many, many doctors tell me that narcissistic parents will create a child with borderline personality disorder in the most extreme cases. Like they will create someone with a severe attachment disorder. And I hate how it's called borderline personality disorder. Because you're like, oh, this is borderline. And it's like, it's not borderline. It's not a great thing to have. People with borderline personality disorder, if you've ever watched the show My Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, she has borderline. And it's an attachment disorder. Like if your girlfriend has BPD or your boyfriend, you are either the most incredible person who's ever lived. They're obsessed with you. And then if you go out with your friends and you don't text them back right away, you come home and all your shit's in the lawn. And they've like cut the crotches out of your pants. They've set fire to everything. It's huge extremes because they either like are latched on to someone or they feel completely abandoned and they lash out. There's a lack of middle ground. And that happens because a narcissistic parent really enjoys having little kids who are like, mommy, mommy, where it's like, mama is just the greatest and the only person on planet Earth. But then around the age 4 or 5, naturally a child breaks away. They go to school, they get their own friends, like, Mom, you're embarrassing me, stop singing in the car. Suddenly, mom, the natural separation occurs. And the narcissistic parent is like, really? Fine. You can cook your own dinner. I'm not kissing you goodnight. And they pull away to punish the child for what they perceive as like this abandonment of like their fandom. And the child is just like, Mom, and just reaches and reaches and reaches. And the parent just pulls, giving just enough to keep the child obsessed. And it just really stunts your development. You have attachment disorders and it's not impossible to get over, but it's really, really hard. It's really hard. It's really hard. But there's no impossible reversal. So when I thought about this, because I was like, okay, a narcissist who I don't really see any one of Kris's kids having like flat out BPD, but I do see some bad attachment disorders, bad attachment styles. In who? Can you guess? Chloe. Her latching onto someone like Lamar Odom, who is clearly riddled with issues. I mean, put the crack aside. Put the crack aside if you can. He has attachment disorders of his own. There is such a strong codependency there. Their issues just fit like clink. And so it was impossible for them to make any sort of progress and growth on their own as individuals. And certainly like together as a couple, it was just this cycle, right? And Chloe does that. She latches on to people and she is blind to the reality of them. Kylie has a different kind of attachment disorder. She has like a safety blanket kind of thing. Jordan Woods was like, when you're young, when you're like 19, a teenager, I was super close with my besties, like we went everywhere together. We're sleeping over all the time, braiding each other's hair. But theirs was it was codependent in a different way. And they talked about that. If you watch Life of Kylie, her reality show, like half the plot line was me and Jordan are completely codependent on one another. Like we can't exist without the other one. So when Jordan hooked up with Tristan Thompson, Chloe's baby daddy, it like threw two women with very similar attachment disorders into absolute chaos because both of their safety blankets were taken away from them. And Kylie then latched onto Travis, right? Chloe, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if she's still seeing Tristan. Who even knows? Not publicly, but she doesn't make great choices. I love her. She doesn't make great choices. So Kylie just like monkey vine from one person to the next. Chloe, I don't know. Maybe she is working on herself. Maybe she's attached to her daughter now. And maybe they're going to have this relationship dynamic that a lot of single moms with daughters have, or not even single moms, just moms who have daughters that they're super close with, where it's like you're wed to your mom. I know that's going to strike a chord for some of you. That's going to strike a chord for at least one of you. And you're going to be like, and what that does to the child is the child grows up exhausted and not able to make commitments because they've already been so committed to somebody that now when they have a partner who wants something, it's like, what do you want from me? What do you want? Because they've already been married. They've already been wed. They've already been giving all of their emotion, all of their time, and all of their priority to someone. And when they have to come and do it with an actual spouse, it's like, I got nothing in the tank. I'm sick of this. So do you see how these kinds of things affect people generationally? It's really, really, really interesting. It's really interesting. So I think that's what's going on with Khloe and Kylie. What about Kourtney? I think the anecdote that stood out, about Kourtney freaking out that mom wasn't home to, cook dinner and all that. I think it's so interesting that Kourtney, who is like this, she's an interesting paradox because she's like this like bitch who doesn't care about anything. And she's like, I just want to be home with my kids. I'm like, that is just never what I expect you to say. Never. And she is obsessed with her children. That's her entire priority. She doesn't really have any like business things. Don't even talk about poosh. Like that is actually like something that we care about. And that line of turbans, that like Aquas towel, that's your big business endeavor? Weird. But she's also not a very good disciplinarian, right? Because she had an extreme disciplinarian in her mother who would hit her and withhold affection. So Kourtney's going to do the opposite. She's going to give them nothing but affection and nothing but yes. Sure, you can slap your nanny. Sure, you can wear a Gucci tank top, Mason. He is going to be such a douchebag. Her kids are in a lot of trouble. Mason's going to grow up to be just like, he's going to be like Brandon Davis, like shirt open to his navel, like gut spilling out at like the clubs, whatever, with like whatever Paris Hilton is going to be for their generation. Penelope, I think, is going to be an absolute hellion. I think she's going to be like a nervous Nelly, almost like Margot Tenenbaum, like mixed with Paris Hilton. Rain, he seems like he's just going to be like a little Johnny Depp, like very like wild and artsy. She got a mess on her hands. She needs to start raising those kids and not just coddling them. Send them to my house. I'll straighten them out like a piece of wire in a weekend. So when you break it down, Kris Jenner's behavior has carved her children out of clay. And once that clay dries, it's real hard. Now, Rob, who even knows? Rob's a drug addict. And somebody said to me one time that if you have a family and one person is on drugs, that's the only honest person in that family, because that's the person who has like absorbed it all and they're feeling it all. And that's why they have to anesthetize themselves with drugs. I thought that was really interesting. Not like it's an excuse, but it's like they're actually not as crazy as you might think. Kendall, I've done a whole video on Kendall and her sexuality and how I think she was shaped so much more by Bruce's issues before he became Caitlyn and how that stunted her. But like she has a very flat affect. And I think she just kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit. Like she didn't have the charisma that Kim had when it came to like Kris trying to monetize her. It's like, I don't know. That's an interesting one. Tell me what you think. But I could talk about psychological breakdowns of celebrities all day long, and I do. That's literally what this whole channel is. So tell me what you think about Kris. Do you think she's like actually kind of fantastic? I do love her. She looks a lot like my mom, so I'm always like, Mom. I would say my mom's like the good version of Kris Jenner. I mean, she's certainly like done well with what she had, like 5 or 6 mediocre children. Great job. But in terms of actual parenting, not sure I'd trade moms. Wouldn't trade my mama for anything. But tell me if any of this resonates with you. If you have a parent like this, if you have a sibling who exhibits these sort of hallmarks of behavior, if you think maybe you have a little borderline personality, a little histrionic, a little narcissism, a little psychopathy, I want to hear about it. And like I said, if you have a question, want to talk to me one-on-one, find me at shallonlester.com and follow me on Instagram at ShallonXO and listen to my podcast, Girl on Top, out every Wednesday.